highlighting history of suburban Sydney with the St Peter's Cooks River History Group.
Our aim is to preserve and promote local history.
We are based at St Peter's in Sydney's inner west.
Newtown, a suburb of Sydney's inner west, is located 4 kilometres southwest of the Sydney Central Business District.
Early landowners in the area were Thomas Rowley at Kingston Farm and Nicholas Devine at Burren Farm. Camperdown was owned by William Bligh, Governor of New South Wales. When Bligh returned to England, it was passed on to his daughter and son-in-law, Maurice O'Connell.
The name Newtown is believed to have derived its name from John Webster's Newtown store. However, in 1827, the Sydney Gazette reported,
Newtown. There is talk of our having a suburb of this name, as well as our neighbours, the Tasmanians.
The Hobart Gazette stated,
a suburban village similar to our Newtown, it is said, will shortly be constructed in the confines of Sydney.
6 years later,
the houses upon Devine's farm, about 2 miles from Sydney, have so increased in number of late that it is called Newtown.
Access to the area was via the Cooks River Road. Toll houses were located near the present-day Forbes Street and Newtown Bridge. It became Newtown Road, then King Street. It is still the main thoroughfare through the suburb.
Large homes were built in the area. Some gave their names to local streets.
Homewood and Dixon Streets. William Fanning, of the firm Fanning and Griffiths, built Homewood in 1841. It was later occupied by James Dixon.
College and Holt Streets. Camden Villa, built by Robert Bourne, was purchased by Thomas Holt. When sold to the Congregational Church, it became Camden Theological College, then a girls' school before being demolished. Ferndale Lodge, still standing in Samuel Kent Lane, was the lodge for the villa. Samuel Kent was chaplain of the college.
Lord Street. John Lord lived at Bellow Retiro.
Reeby Street and Reeby Lane. Mary Reeby lived in Reeby House, now demolished for an apartment block. She built Stanmore House for her daughter. It is Newtown's only surviving old mansion. Although hidden behind shops on Enmore Road, the rear of the building can be seen in Pemmell Lane.
Cambridge Hall, renamed Camperdown Lodge, was situated between Georgina and Fitzroy Streets. It was the residence of James Donnithorne and his daughter Eliza. After his death, Eliza was to marry, but the groom never appeared. From that time, her habits became eccentric. She never left the house. The wedding breakfast remained undisturbed on the dining table and moulded away until nothing was left.
Victorian residences can still be seen in Georgina Street and Albemarle Street. An elaborate group of dwellings in Warren Ball Avenue, built in the 1880s, formed part of a development with a planned square, Hollis Park.
In Dixon Street, the Towers was the family home of prominent brickmaker Josiah Gentle, owner of the Bedford Brickworks.
Today, former commercial buildings have been readapted.
The Crago flour mill was built in 1896. Concrete silos were added in 1936. Today, the Newtown Silos apartments.
Alpha House and Beta House were formerly multi-storey warehouses.
The Foundry, built in 1884, is now residential living.
In 1848, the Sydney Church of England Cemetery Company purchased part of the original Camperdown estate as a burial ground. After 1868, there was no sale of further plots. The only burials were in those already purchased.
One of the well-known memorials in the cemetery is that of the wreck of the Dunbar, which sunk off Sydney Heads in 1857. A tomb was erected to contain the remains of 22 people, plus the victims of the Catherine Adamson wreck that occurred 2 months later.
With the growth of population in Newtown, the original St Stephen's Church, located in Victoria Street between Egan and O'Connell Streets, became inadequate. Camperdown Cemetery was chosen as a new site. An Act of the New South Wales Parliament was required for the erection of a church and parsonage in the cemetery grounds. The foundation stone of the present church was laid in 1871.
By the 1940s, the cemetery was overgrown. In 1946, the body of a murdered girl was discovered there. This prompted action by the local council. All but 4 acres of land were resumed as public space. The area of cemetery around the church was walled off. Outside the wall, the park was cleared of trees and monuments, and Camperdown Memorial Rest Park was established.
Other churches were built in the area.
St Joseph's Roman Catholic Church on the corner of Bedford and Station Streets.
A Methodist church on King Street, now the Newtown Mission.
The Congregational Church on King Street, today the St Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church.
A Baptist church was erected in Church Street.
The Salvation Army Citadel in Brown Street is now Newtown Library.
In Georgina Street, a Jewish synagogue.
Horse-drawn coach services, often owned by local publicans, operated between Newtown and Sydney.
The railway station opened in 1855, one of the original 4 stations on the Sydney to Parramatta line. In 1878, the station was moved from Station Street to its current location.
The first steam trams operated in 1881 between Marrickville and Newtown. They were linked to the city system the following year. In the 1890s, a horse-drawn tram operated between Newtown and St Peters. Electrification of trams took place in 1900. The Newtown Tram Depot buildings are adjacent to the station. The office and amenities buildings are now shops.
In 1862, Newtown was incorporated as a municipality. The council purchased the School of Arts building for a town hall. It was enlarged in 1869 and a facade added in 1936.
The Newtown Superior Public School building opened in 1877.
St George's Hall was completed in 1887. It has been used as a public hall, moving picture theatre, home of a vaudeville company and a venue for concerts. The building was purchased by the Department of Education and is now part of the Newtown School of Performing Arts. Turtle's real estate offices were originally located there.
Impressive buildings appeared: a courthouse, post office, and banks.
The 1892 fire station has been replaced.
The Newtown United Friendly Society's dispensary was erected in 1902 on the corner of Enmore Road and Reby Street. The building was enlarged in 1912 to contain the dispensary, dispenser's residence, large hall, 4 lodge rooms and various offices. Today it is used for commercial purposes.
The Manchester Unity Hall was built in 1904.
In 1906, new buildings were erected for the markets which had been there for many years. Newtown Central now occupies the site.
The main shopping strip of Newtown is the longest and most complete commercial precinct of the late Victorian and Federation period in Australia.
Elaborate facades can be seen above the shop awnings.
In 1889, the Illustrated Sydney News described King Street as
always more or less busy, but on Saturday night it is seen at its best and brightest. Fancy a double line more than a mile long of brilliantly lighted shops and sidewalks so inconveniently crowded that it is often a matter of some difficulty to push one's way through the throng of people on business and on pleasure bent.
In 1912, Newtown was
one of the busiest commercial centres outside the city of Sydney,
and it was felt to be
the leading business suburb of Sydney.
The great variety of shops meant residents did not need to go outside the area for shopping or entertainment.
Well-known shops were Marcus Clark's, originally on King Street, then in Brown Street. The King Street store became Marcus Clark's cash store.
Hattie's, whose building later became Brennan's. Brennan's also had a store in Wilson Street.
Marcus Clark's and Brennan's had a system for sending money to the cashiers. Small canisters ran on wires overhead. The customer's money went inside, a cord was pulled, and the canister was propelled towards the cash desk. The customer's change was returned to the counter in the same manner.
McElwraith's, a statewide grocery and provisions business, had 36 chain stores in the Sydney metropolitan area.
Two Coles variety stores promoted lowering the cost of living for Australian families, their slogan being, "Nothing over 2 and 6pence."
Rumsey's on the corner of Dixon Street had the biggest ironmongery business south of Newtown Bridge. They sold imported crockery, glassware, cutlery and Berger paints.
Courtney's Hardware became Mitre 10. Chemist Warehouse is now the occupant of the building.
Still trading are W.N. Bull Funerals, established in 1892 on King Street.
Wood's Jewellers began in Newtown in 1913, currently in Wilson Street.
Well-known names from the past are
Goutrell White, which was located on King Street on the former Abel's bakery site. They supplied over a third of Sydney's meat pie market. In 1949, the company was sold to the Western Food Group and traded as Tip Top.
Pick-me-up foods were in Alice Street, as was the Peacock Jam Factory. George Peacock and Sons were taken over by Henry Jones and Company and eventually became IXL.
Entertainment venues were plentiful.
In 1888, Her Majesty's Skating Rink opened with roller skating in winter and swimming in summer. The building later became the Marcus Clark Store, the Cash Store, the original Hub Theatre, and in 1934, Newtown Hoyts. In 1965, it was converted and renamed the Burland Community Hall. The upper floor housed a local library until it was removed to the Salvation Army Citadel in Brown Street, today office and retail premises.
The following year, the Trocadero and Académie de Musique opened with a skating rink, billiard saloons, club rooms, hairdressing salon and cafe. In the early 1900s, it was a picture theatre. The building was later occupied by Proper's Motor Body Works, followed by a second-hand furniture store. Today, the restored building is owned by Moore Theological College.
The Hub building at Newtown Bridge opened in 1908 as the Hippodrome. It was later known as Clay's Bridge Theatre and the Hub Theatre. It was a venue for films, vaudeville acts, and the Broadway Theatre Company.
The Arcadia, also known as L'Avenue, was an open-air theatre on the corner of Wilson and Fitzroy Streets.
The Prince of Wales Theatre was next to Abel's Bakery. After closing, it became a skating rink, the PMG engineering branch, and a second-hand furniture store before being demolished. It was adjacent to today's Newtown School of Performing Arts, now a commercial residential site.
Thiel's Star Pictures was also known as Brennan's Hippodrome. In 1911, it was the largest amusement garden in New South Wales, with fireworks, singing competitions, orchestral music and vaudeville acts. Today, the site of the administration office of the School of Performing Arts.
Adjacent to the I Have a Dream mural was Hattie's Arcade. The ground floor contained 25 shops. On the second floor, a photo studio, billiard room, offices and residence. In 1909, a picture show was installed. It became the Royal Arcade, which was replaced by the smaller of the two Coles variety stores in Newtown.
The Newtown Stadium Picture Palace was known as Rivoli when it was destroyed by fire in 1924.
The Majestic Theatre on the corner of Wilson Street and Erskineville Road became the Elizabethan, then the Olympic. In 1980, it was gutted by fire. The site is now the Newtown Business Centre.
On the corner of Angel Street and Erskineville Road was the Newtown Stadium Picture Palace. It featured boxing contests before becoming the Victoria Theatre. In 1953, the Newtown Police Citizens Boys Club occupied the building. A residential development is now on the site.
The only cinema still operating in Newtown is the Dendy, which opened in 1995, where a Coles variety store was located, the largest one of the two in Newtown.
Newtown has always had numerous hotels. In 1907, there were 25 hotels in the Newtown electorate. A decision was made to close 2 of them. Today, the names have changed, but many are still operating as hotels. Some have other uses.
The original White Horse Hotel was near White Horse Street before relocating to North Newtown. Closing in 1976, it is now More Books.
The Pastisi Cafe building on the corner of King and Elizabeth Streets was originally the Union Inn, then the Prince of Wales Hotel.
Kelly's on Kent, originally the Cottage of Content, then the Cricketers' Arms. McDonald's occupied the building for a short time.
The Daniel Lambert, named after an Englishman of obese proportions, became the Marlborough Hotel.
The Botany View on the corner of King and Darley Streets, previously called Maria Street, has retained its original name.
The Cooper's Arms was established as the Shakespeare.
The Sandringham has the same name but not its original use.
Carlito's was originally the Hampton Court, then the Milton Hotel.
Named relevant to their location are the Town Hall and Bank Hotels.
The Sir William Wallace became the Victory, today the Australian Sunrise Lodge, budget accommodation.
The Daniel Webster became the Oxford Hotel, then the Oxford Tavern and Zanzibar. Today, back to its original name, Webster's.
The International was on the corner of King and Camden Streets.
The Newtown Hotel, Club and Rugby are previous names for the hotel.
On the corner of King Street and Lord Street, the Frankfurt Park Hotel became the St Peter's Inn, today the Sydney Park Hotel.
The 1889 quote, "Always more or less busy, but on Saturday night it is seen at its best and brightest," is still applicable to Newtown today.
If you have enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel. It's free. Coming soon, Darlington. Shepherd's Darling Nursery gave this suburb its name. And check out our website, stpeterscooksriverhistory.wordpress.com.